Good evening, you're watching News Mongolian World. I'm your host, Rabat. And for our top stories, bill on 2023 state budget to be submitted to the Parliament. Libraries Without Borders project launched, and for the news, stay tuned. The Cabinet discussed at its last week's regular meeting bills on the budget framework statement for 2023 and budget assumptions for 2024 through 2025 and other related issues. As proposed by the Prime Minister and members of the Cabinet, it was decided to reconsider the bills this week after including the policies and measures to be implemented in the next year. Accordingly, the Cabinet discussed bills again and decided to submit them to the Parliament.
The government's budget policy for 2023 is directed towards the following objectives, aiming to implement state austerity policy, promote a new revival policy, reduce the import pressure, and stabilize macroeconomy through the optimal distribution of resources. The objectives include legislations regarding state austerity, intensification of reforms in the budget financing system in health and education sectors, optimal implementation of the debt management strategies, social protection to target groups within the framework of the policy from welfare to work, and implementation of policies to decentralization. In addition, at the Cabinet meeting on September 29th, Minister and Chairman of the National Committee on Traffic Congestion, Suhatar, presented some measures to reduce traffic congestion in the capital city. In connection with the presentation, corresponding ministers were given tasks like developing and presenting a proposal on creating specific public transport lanes on carriageways and introducing short-term routes of buses within the framework of public transport reforms.
The Libraries Without Borders project launch was held on Friday at the Rare and Valuable Books Museum of the National Library of Mongolia. The project has been initiated for supporting the development of local libraries throughout Mongolia in 2022 through 2023 through a partnership between the Australian Embassy in Mongolia, the National Library of Mongolia, and the Mongolian Library Association. The project launch opening ceremony is part of the celebrations marking the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Australia and Mongolia.
The ceremony was launched by the opening speech of the Ambassador of Australia to Mongolia. Officials from the Ministry of Culture and the National Library of Mongolia also delivered congratulatory greetings. With the financial support of the Australian Embassy, the Mongolian Library Association, through the Libraries Without Borders project, will provide access to technological innovation, capacity building training for librarians, and the enrichment of the children's book collections of the central public libraries of the 21 provinces, including the central and remote public libraries of Ulaanbaatar.
Australia is one of the partners in this Library Without Borders project. We're working in collaboration with the Mongolian Library Association, the Mongolian National Library, and of course the Ministry of Culture, and also the Australian Alumni Association. So we're very, very pleased to support this project. Yes, this is our 50th anniversary year of diplomatic relations between Mongolia and Australia, and we do have quite a strong cultural relationship, which is something that people don't know. So beyond this project, we have many other projects as well with our direct aid program, but we also have cultural grants from Australia. So one of the other key projects we're supporting here is an inclusive filmmaking project with the Arts Council of Mongolia. It's about making short films for people with hearing impairment.
We are the Reader NGO, and we would like to establish libraries in Mongolia, in schools, so that children can use the books, the computer, and that they can work together, get knowledge, and that's what we really like to achieve. That was actually during COVID time. So when it was difficult to read and going outside to get a book, we started this project. Actually, I met someone from Monsudar, and we noticed that reading is still a bit behind here in Mongolia. If you look at the level of children when they go to university, that's too low. And we want to encourage reading much more. And that's not only reading a page or a chapter, but that's the whole book, going on adventure and getting the love of reading.
A team of library experts will work in rural libraries to organize a series of capacity-building training sessions to respond to the needs of local libraries. The team will also expand the range of the children's book collections in these libraries with the best works of national and world classic literature, history, science, education, and self-development. Moreover, the International Standard Library Management Program will be translated into the Mongolian language and will be made accessible to libraries. Since the establishment, the Australian Embassy has been supporting the library and education sector. The Embassy provided funding and assistance for several Australia Awards alumni-initiated projects to adopt the best library practices in Mongolia. The Beyond Books project, implemented from 2018 to 2019, introduced a community library model in the suburbs of Ulaanbaatar. The Australian Corner Educational Space was established at the Children's Central Library from 2019 to 2020, and both continue to provide a wide range of library and information services. Likewise, the Embassy, in collaboration with the National Library of Mongolia, conducted capacity-building training and provided technical assistance to librarians of the Central Public Libraries of Dondrov, Bayolgi, Sidling, and Arkhanga provinces this year. Globally, Australian libraries are renowned for their user-oriented, inclusive, diverse, and high-quality services that reach every member of the family. The Libraries Without Borders project aims at introducing Australian public libraries' best practices to Mongolian central public libraries through training, cooperation, and technology.
Now let's take a look at Mongolia's current affairs.
Experts from the Wisconsin Project on Nuclear Arms Control delivered a workshop on September 22nd to 23rd to over 40 government, law enforcement, and industry representatives in the use of the Risk Report database, the leading source of unclassified information on companies around the world linked to the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and related sanctions evasion. The Wisconsin Project is a United States-based nonprofit organization that conducts research and public education aimed at inhibiting strategic trade from contributing to the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Sponsored by the U.S. Department of State Bureau of International Security and Non-Proliferation, Export Control, and related border security program, and organized in collaboration with the National Counterterrorism Council of Mongolia, the training is facilitating to strengthen Mongolian public and private sector capacity to screen, detect, and investigate suspected export control or sanctions violations and bolster international sanctions compliance.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Here's the international news from our partner agencies. At least 11 people were injured, one seriously, when 4 rockets hit the city of Kramatorsk in eastern Ukraine, authorities said. Mayor Alexander Honcharenko posted on Facebook that Thursday's early morning attack damaged high-rise buildings and private homes.
Kramatorsk, a city in the country's eastern Donetsk region with a pre-war population of 150,000, is not on the front line, but some of the Ukrainian forces are headquartered there. Local resident and shop owner Svitlana Kravchenko said that she and others were inside the shop when a rocket hit the street. The shopkeeper, whose husband is disabled, cried while looking at the damaged store as she cleared broken glass and debris from outside. We want to live in our homes so everybody can sleep in their own bed. Everybody can have their own family and does not need to go anywhere. And everybody can live in their homes and husbands will be with their wives and she will be with her husband always. And so we would go to hospitals not with wounds but with ordinary things like common respiratory infections or to treat a cough, but not to treat wounds from shrapnel. The reports of new shelling came as Russia appeared to continue to lose ground around the key northeastern city of Liman, about 40 minutes from Kramatorsk, while it struggles to press on with chaotic mobilization of troops and prevent the fighting-age men from leaving the country, according to a Washington-based think tank and the British intelligence reports. The Institute for the Study of War, citing Russian reports, said Ukrainian forces have taken more villages around Liman, a city some 160 kilometers southeast of Kharkiv, Ukraine's second-largest city. The report said Ukrainian forces may soon encircle Liman entirely in what would be a major blow to Moscow's war effort.
The Finnish government said Thursday it would significantly limit passenger traffic on Finland's border with Russia, banning Russian citizens traveling with tourist visas from entering the Nordic country effective Friday. With this decision, the government states that the entry of Russian citizens for tourism purposes could endanger Finland's international relations. When the authorities decide on the entry of an individual person or the granting of a visa, they will take this endangerment into account, and on the basis of this, the person's entry can be denied or a negative decision can be made on the visa application. From now on, visas will no longer be issued to Russians if the trip is tourism-related.
The government justified its decision by saying that continued arrivals of Russian tourists in Finland is endangering the country's international relations. It said it had discussed the issue with Ukraine's leadership, among others, ahead of the decision. Russian citizens can still enter Finland, which shares a 1,340-kilometer land border with Russia, for family reasons, for study or work purposes. Also, Russian political dissidents may seek to enter the country for humanitarian purposes.
Czech border police reported traffic delays on Thursday after authorities in the Czech Republic, together with Austria, renewed checks at the border with Slovakia amid a new wave of immigration.
According to reports, border police also fired warning shots in the air before detaining a van driver alongside 15 migrants on Thursday morning. Speaking at the Czech-Slovak border, the deputy chief of the regional police said the latest wave started on 20th May. Czech police reported delays that mostly truck drivers had to endure after the new measures came into force on Thursday at 27 border crossings, while Austrian authorities enforced the checks at 11 crossings. The measure will initially be in place for 10 days. Austria, the Czech Republic and Slovakia are all part of the European Union's visa-free Schengen zone, where residents of member nations typically cross borders without presenting passports or visas. Schengen countries have adopted temporary border controls in the past for various reasons, including to curb illegal migration and to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. In the first 8 hours of enforcing the measures, Czech police said some 120 illegal migrants had been detained on Czech territory, together with 9 human smugglers. After Russia invaded Ukraine, the Czech Republic took some 430,000 Ukrainian refugees, but the country's interior minister said the latest measures to deal with illegal migration. The Czech interior ministry said the checks were necessary after authorities detained almost 12,000 migrants across Czech territory this year, most of them from Syria. That is more than the 8,500 seen during the previous massive migration wave in Europe in 2015, when the Czech Republic was not on the main route. Some 125 human smugglers have been arrested this year, a significant increase compared with the previous years.
Now let's take a look at our regular feature on sports. Fans attending the Qatar 2022 World Cup must show a negative COVID-19 test when they arrive as part of the host nation's rules to combat the virus. Organizers announced on Thursday that all visitors aged 18 and over must also download the government-run phone application tracking people's movements and health status called Ehteras. Fans aged 6 and above must be able to show a negative result from a PCR test taken in the 48 hours before arriving or from an official rapid test taken within 24 hours. The COVID-19 testing policy for visitors aged 6 and over is regardless of the individual's vaccination status, the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy said in a statement. Vaccination is not mandatory for the 1.2 million expected visitors for the tournament, which runs from November 20th to December 18th. Masks must be worn on public transport, including the subway system that many fans will use to get to the 8 stadiums in and around Doha. World Cup organizers also said that anyone who tests positive for COVID-19 while in Qatar will be required to isolate in accordance with the Ministry of Public Health guidelines. The Saudi-backed LIV Golf Series offered players astronomical sums of money to breach their contracts so they could help sports wash the recent history of Saudi atrocities, a lawsuit from the PGA Tour claims. The PGA Tour has launched a counterclaim against a lawsuit from LIV Golf. LIV's lawsuit was filed after the PGA suspended and fined players who left the tour to join the breakaway series. LIV is claiming that PGA breached competition laws. However, in its counterclaim, the PGA says a key component of LIV's strategy has been to intentionally induce tour members to breach their tour agreements and play in LIV events while seeking to maintain their tour membership and play in marquee tour events so LIV can free ride off the tour on its platform. It goes on to accuse LIV of cynicism and alleges that LIV series is an effort to use the LIV players and the game of golf to improve the public image of Saudi Arabia, following criticism of its human rights record. Six-time major winner Phil Mickelson, former world number 1 Dustin Johnson, and Open champion Cameron Smith are among the players to join LIV, which offers a $25 million purse as its events. Mickelson reportedly received a $200 million fee for joining LIV. Johnson was said to have received $150 million, and when joining the series, Smith said money was a factor in his decision. Earlier this week, Mickelson and Ian Poulter were among 4 players who asked to be removed from the LIV lawsuit. They said with LIV joining the claim and in effect representing them, they no longer needed to pursue the matter as individuals. Here's the weather forecast of world's major cities. Well, that's all for today, and thank you for staying with us. We'll see you next week with more news and updates. Have a nice weekend. Goodbye.